The Art of Learning to Love Yourself by Natty on AO3. Read to you by Just a Lot of Trees. The description of the series reads as follows. This is a quirkless Izuku AU that has taken inspiration from many other fics that I have read and enjoyed. I'm not sure how long it'll be, but I'll update this description as I go. Each part can be read alone or as part of a series, though I do suggest you read them all for some context on how I write the characters and for little things that I change from canon. The major events shouldn't be affected much, but I may decide to write them differently or take my artistic liberties to change things. Some series tags are as follows, and they will be updated as they write more. Relationships. Erasermic, Izuku x Shouto x Hitoshi, Neito x Denki. Quirkless Izuku, Dadzawa, Yamadad, All Might Bashing. Katsuki meets consequences and does not like the result. Katsuki attends Shiketsu. Mineta gets expelled / Mineta bashing. A little bit of Ochako bashing, because she clearly doesn't understand trauma associated to bullying. Nerd Squad includes Izuku, Hitoshi, Shouto, Neito, and Mei. Please note that I will not be reading Natty's notebook, because it is simply the analysis on the quirks present in The Art of Learning to Love Yourself. I may do it after I'm done with the series, / when the series is actually complete, but for now I will not be doing it. Best worst day. Summary. People can only be told they're useless so many times before they start to believe it. After an entire decade of bullying, Izuku is hanging on by a thread. Now, after his best friend turned worst bully tells him to jump off the roof, got caught in a villain attack, and had his dreams shattered by the #1 hero, Izuku is left shattered on a rooftop. As the voices of his tormentors scream in his mind, he takes off his shoes and lines them up on the edge. Notes. Before it begins, there are some trigger warnings. Suicidal thoughts, disassociation, and a lot of self-deprecation. Izuku is not in a good headspace at the beginning of this fic, and I don't want anyone to be triggered. If you have depression, PTSD, anxiety, have a history of self-harm, it is not recommended to read this story. Some fics may be more angsty than this, but they still wanted to warn us. It does end well though. I can't say that you can be a hero without a power of your own. It's good to dream, but you have to be realistic. A hero without a quirk would be a liability. Take a swan dive off the roof and pray for a quirk in your next life. You'll never be more than a Deku. Wind is faster up here, Izuku notes passively, than it is down on the street. It must be the unobstructed paths that it gets to take along the rooftops without any buildings to slow it. It feels nice against his flushed face, cooling down the angry red that rose when he cried. The tear tracks leave cold streaks down his face as they're wind-dried by the warm nighttime breeze that flits across the roof. His hair is wind-tangled and face swollen, but everything he felt earlier leading to his crying is gone, leaving a lukewarm emptiness in his chest. Earlier, Izuku heard distant explosions, but lost as he was in his mind, he's not quite sure if the explosions were echoing in his mind with the angry voices, or if they were real. Not that it matters one way or another, he thinks idly, kicking his feet in the air as he sits on the edge. His red shoes sit beside him, and his obnoxious yellow school bag leans against the ledge behind him as he stares into the horizon blankly. The sky has long since transitioned from its stunning blue to vibrant oranges, and is now a deep purple as the sun sinks further from the sky, but all Izuku sees is shades of grey. The thoughts of ending it all isn't new to Izuku. The echoing anger of Katsuki, never Kachan, not in the safety of his mind, in screams and bangs and popping burnt caramel, sickly sweet, throbs in his head and never gives him peace. But never has he been in a position to actually go through with it. It must be some sick sort of irony to be given the opportunity to get out the way, know his place, quirkless nothing, by his idol, and yet he sits there, eyes blank and mind spinning, a coward still alive. It's a stroke of luck, really, that Izuku hears the footsteps behind him, given his state of mind and the yowling of the wind. Soft steps, padding across the rooftop, as if their creator was putting in a conscious effort to be heard. Careful, hesitant steps, and Izuku latches onto the rhythmic sounds, no matter how short a time they've been there, kicking his feet against the wall in a matching cadence, even after the footsteps halt. The wind lulls, and fabric rustles, and Izuku's socked feet thump, thump, thump over the edge of the roof. Izuku finds himself holding his breath in anticipation. The sudden silence, the lack of wind, creates a picture of stillness that even Izuku's previously racing thoughts can't break. "Hey, kid." The words break the silence and shatter the halted time, but not the bubble of reality that they've created just for the two of them, in a deep, gravelly rumble that sounds hesitant, cautious, wary and tired, but concerned, worried, as if the smallest thing, the slightest breeze, the quietest sound, the faintest tremors, could cause the world to come crumbling down. And yet, Izuku is blank still, empty, and he doesn't want to worry this man who probably saw him sitting on the roof and didn't know what a useless waste of space he is. He's making someone concerned about something so weak and worthless, and he really should speak, or at least acknowledge him, because he's wasting his time. Working around the unstuck thoughts, he tilts his head to show the man he heard him, because the thought of speaking makes his breath still worthless, and the thought of turning his eyes from the sky makes his eyes well and blur, so he wouldn't be able to see anything either way. Useless. He tilts his head and waits, though it's not long before the man speaks again. "It's a bit late for you to be out alone, kid," he grumbles, voice vibrating deep in his chest. It's soothing, despite the emotion laced into the tone, threatening to send Izuku spiraling further, like a cat's purr, a solfeggio frequency. Just the right tone and cadence of words to reverberate in Izuku's ears and head, louder than his self-deprecating whispers and more incessant than the echoes of Katsuki's angry yelling. And this time, Izuku is able to breathe out a low hum. It's higher than the man's, and broken from all the sobbing from earlier, but Izuku is surprised that any sound came out at all. At the answering tone, the purposefully audible steps start again, getting closer to the edge, to Izuku, until they step up on the ledge beside him. Izuku doesn't take his eyes off the just emerging stars when the man sits beside him with a sigh, nor do they wander as he sits beside him in silence. With trembling hands, Izuku breaks the stillness with motions, slowly signing, "You not be up here. Late. Not safe." Inwardly, Izuku curses himself again for not signing fluidly, his hands choppy from the cold and adrenaline crash, and mind fuddled enough to mush up the words so he can barely think of the right signs. Not that it matters much, Izuku thinks again, because what are the chances that this random person knows how to sign? His worries are cut short by a huff, one that makes the man's body rise and fall sharply in wry amusement. Damn right it's not safe, kid, he says, not fazed by Izuku's silence. That's why there's no chance of me leaving you alone. Izuku can feel the man shift, hear the soft sound of his hands meeting the cement of the rooftop, and a soft rhythmic patting that sounds like drumming fingers as he leans back on his hands. How'd you get up here anyways? The building's private and locked. Unless you scaled the side of the building, I can't see how you'd have been able to. All Might, he signs absently. It's the name that the deaf hero fan culture uses. Hands first miming the hair that reaches skyward, then fisting and drawing both arms into the hero's flexing power pose. But he does it so blankly that he thinks that if he were any more present, he might find it comical. He lets his hands drop back to his lap slowly, and draws a shuddering breath, blinking when his eyes well. The sudden closing of his throat causes him to startle, and his eyes focus sharply, and his breathing speeds up again. He thought he cried all his tears back when the sun was still colouring the sky blue, but he proves himself wrong. His chin wobbles and his chest heaves as tears rapidly form in his eyes and fall in streams down his face and messily drop off his chin. A large hand lays itself on Izuku's back, heavy and comforting, and rubbing grounding circles onto his back. He breaks. His voice tears from his throat in ugly sobs, and his stomach clenches, curling him down into himself. Before he can lean too far over the edge, a hand quickly moves to his shoulder and draws him sideways. Izuku finds his face buried into the man's chest, wrapped in a strong arm and breathing in the scent of coffee, cats, and sweat. Izuku isn't sure how long they sit there while he calms down, but by the time he calms down, his thighs are numb and his fingers are cramped from where they're clutching the man's shirt. Now that his sobs have quieted to sniffles, he can hear the voice of the man rumbling through his chest in a smooth rumble of comfort. He registers the thick, soft feeling of the black shirt, definitely of high quality, and what seems to be a smooth, almost cold scarf pressed against where Izuku's forehead presses into his collarbones. He can also feel the man's chin pressing into the crown of his head, rough with stubble, catching his curls. And for the first time in a long time, Izuku feels safe. All cried out, kiddo? The man mumbles into his hair, prompting the team to nod, hands twitching on the man's shirt, unsure if he's allowed to bask in the affection longer. He knows he shouldn't, stranger danger and all, but Izuku almost desperately needs the positive interaction. His hesitancy is met with a squeeze on his shoulder, comforting and firm, pulling him slightly closer and giving Izuku the opportunity to adjust and get more comfortable. Good. Now, can I ask why I should be angry at the number one hero? Izuku almost laughs at the clear distaste in the man's voice when referring to All Might, but stops himself with a sudden thought. What if this man is a villain? And he hastens to pull his face out of his shoulder, careful not to slam into his chin. And oh, Izuku knows who it is. Not much is known about Eraserhead. In fact, most people don't even know he exists. But few things can truly get in the way of one of Izuku's quests for hero knowledge. The little that is known about him, and only known by the people who have a lot of time and dedication to research, is that he's an underground hero who avoids the media like the plague. He's only ever seen at night and given credit for reconnaissance and other key roles in big name raids, but he's overlooked among the spotlight names. His quirk, Izuku hypothesizes, has to do with his eyes or hair, and clearly works best if no one knows how it works, because anything even mentioning his quirk is sealed or deleted or filed in a locked box on paper. Izuku can't find it anywhere. There was one time that Izuku got lucky and saw a grainy video of a Razorhead fighting. White scarf writhing around his head and binding villains, hair floating around his head as if underwater, body twisting and leaping and fighting disoriented villains, but before it was taken down not a minute later. Only his experience at writing without looking at his paper allowed him to see the whole video and even put in time to create a code specially for his Eraserhead notes. He didn't want to be the reason any information about him got out after all, even with such a small chance someone would pay attention to the notes made from a useless Deku. Kid? Eraserhead prompts, eyebrows furrowing over bloodshot eyes, and Izuku closes his mumbling mouth with an audible click. I didn't catch any of that. Mind repeating any of it? Oh, Izuku starts, voice cracking into a squeak due to overuse. You don't have to be mad at anyone on my behalf. It's fine. He was right anyways. The last bit was said in a whisper, almost to himself, but the look on his face told Izuku that the hero heard it anyway. Sorry kid, I already decided to be mad at him, and no matter how right someone is about something, that doesn't give them the right to leave a kid on a roof. He says his words with a deliberate certainty, breath coming in deep and calmly, and black eyes locked onto Izuku's green ones, not giving him room to argue. Now, what did you say he was right about? Izuku breaks eye contact, fixing his gaze onto Eraserhead's neck instead. It's easier to look away from faces, Izuku knows, so he doesn't have to see disgust or pity break across them when they find out about his diagnosis. Absently, he notes that there's a silver chain looped around it. Whatever pendant it holds is hidden beneath the hero's scarf. He breathes in. The hand still on Eraserhead's chest twitches again in preparation to push away, and replies that a quirkless person can't be a hero. The chest beneath his hand rises with Eraserhead's sharp intake of breath, and the arm around Izuku tightens slightly in surprise. Not enough to be threatening, but enough to make Izuku stiffen in fear regardless. When his voice comes out, it's dangerously low and growling. So you're telling me that All Might took you on this rooftop somehow for some reason? The hero pauses and tilts his neck slightly, indicating a questioning tip of the head, to which Izuku nods hesitantly. I'm assuming you asked him a question if either you or someone you know could be a hero without a quirk. He pauses again, and Izuku nods a little more hesitantly, subconsciously drumming his fingers on Eraserhead. To which he replied, no. This time, Izuku presses his lips together and tilts his head side to side, indicating a sorta, replying, it was more of a be realistic with your dreams. Maybe you can be a police officer than a hard no. It's not like he didn't give me a reason either. He showed me his awful scar and he deflated. Izuku stops himself short and his eyes widen. He was not supposed to say that, oh no. So he's an idiot and a fool, the man mutters under his breath. Also, you should be careful who you reveal information to. I could be anyone for all you know. Izuku can't help but cut in, but I do know who you are, Eraserhead-san. He drops his gaze even further, settling on his hand, tapping in a regular rhythm on the man's chest. There's a short silence then, tense with surprise, before the hero huffs, the sound thick with amusement. I don't even know what to think about that, kid. Holy shit. How'd you find me? When the two of them finally leave the rooftop hours later, Izuku feels more validated than he has since he was 4, since the doctor told him to give up because he's quirkless. Izuku finds it ironic that the end of the worst day of his life held his best memory so far. The memory of a hero telling him he doesn't need a quirk to succeed. He just needs to find other tools to help him, because that's all quirks are, tools. That he can be a hero if he puts in the work for it. The hero didn't sugarcoat it. He told him just how hard it would be, that Izuku would be pushed past the point of wanting to give up, that he'd be ridiculed and pushed against and have to claw his way to even get his provisional license. But Izuku met that with his first truly genuine smile in years. That is nothing new to him. He does that daily just to pass classes. He can push harder and further and it'd be no different than he's used to. Eraserhead leaves Izuku at his front door with his number. "For emergencies," the man said. "That includes seeing blonde imbeciles on the street that need a good smack up the head, being left on another roof, or needing someone to talk to. Or if you see a cat. Cat pictures are also acceptable." All Might may have his own reasons for what he said, but that doesn't matter anymore. It does matter, but Izuku is pushing it aside for more important thoughts. Thoughts that matter more. Eraserhead said he can be a hero, so Izuku will try his damned hardest to prove the man right.